So right now, with all the new Star Wars announcements and TV shows and games and yada yada yada, so much stuff, I thought it'd be a great time to talk about the idea of finally, after all these years, getting a Boba Fett game. Or Mandalorian or Mercenary, doesn't really matter. I just want to play as a bounty hunter. Not this bounty hunter though, his clone son. I've already spent heaps of time playing the Jank Simulator. This thing is glitchy, the camera is nearly impossible to control. Why can I only invert one axis? Now I want an updated version where you can actually control the camera. So I had a chat with my buddy Sage from Uplink podcast, go sub to his channel, and talked about all the possible Star Wars games we could be seeing released over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Will Ubisoft's open world game be about Boba Fett, or a Jedi, or a Jar Jar game? Wouldn't that be amazing? Please let me know down below your number one Star Wars game, the game you want to see, and hey everyone, it's Andrew. I think it's really interesting to wonder what kind of character we're going to be getting in the new open world game specifically anyway, because it doesn't feel like it's going to be a character who, wields a lightsaber or is a force user, because that kind of character in an open world environment that's fully populated with, civilians, whether they're AI or even, if it ends up being an MMO, a multiplayer with lots of other players running around, this isn't the old Republic kind of thing. It's not like you're going to see a character with a lightsaber waving it in the faces of all the civilians and stuff and running around, causing havoc on Coruscant or Tatooine or wherever you are. It feels more likely that...
Give me your money or I'll slice you down.
Exactly. Yeah, even the Sith Lords don't do that unless it's General Grievous. You know what I mean? Like, he's the only kind of character who's, he's not a Jedi, he's not a Sith. He's just like stolen a couple lightsabers and having a bit of fun waving them around. You know what I mean?
Goes into a thrift store on Coruscant. It's like, this will make a fine addition to my collection. Give me the lightsaber or you will die.
That's right. Yeah. So with that said, I feel like it's more likely we're going to see a character that's maybe a bounty hunter or a smuggler or, some type of mercenary that's trying to find his feet or, I don't know if we're going to be thrown into the middle of, a world. Maybe it's a Mandalorian game. Like, who knows? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many possibilities. The problem is that it's, how many years away is it, basically? The earliest we'd be getting it is 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, what'd you say? Like, yeah.
Probably
then
2024. I
even
think.
after. I just, especially with an open world game, I don't think they can promise a year. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't think they even are going to know how long it's going to take to build, especially working with Lucasfilm.
Exactly.
That's extra time.
That's what I was just about to say. They are working with Lucasfilm, who have a track record of, especially in video games. I mean, 1313 was canceled because Lucasfilm and George Lucas himself got into it too deeply and just kept on messing with the development team. I think they've learned their lesson on that front. They're getting better with working on the team. They're opening up with a new focus on Lucasfilm games. But yeah, they're working with one of the biggest, if not the biggest, licenses in the world right now.
And that's part of it. I think it's going to be because like Lucasfilm basically have to approve everything in the game, and they're going to be so strict about keeping it authentically Star Wars. And I think that's been one of the major problems with building open world Star Wars games in the past. That's why we've basically never had a proper open world Star Wars game, is because when you give the player the freedom to roam and explore in an open world that's like a living, breathing world, keeping every corner and every little part of that world that you've designed authentically Star Wars and feeling and sounding like Star Wars is where I think it gets tricky. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so much space, and they run into the issue of how do we keep it not identical to that other part of the world you were at? You know what I mean? How is it different enough that it can still be Star Wars, but still be different to that part you walked in 10 minutes ago or whatever? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of issues.
I thought I was just here. Oh, wait a second. Yeah.
There's a big promise with it, though. Like, so what I was trying to say before, if it's a Mandalorian game, we don't even know if the Mandalorian series is still going to be in production by the time this game is releasing. You know what I mean? 2024, 25. It's unlike we'll be up to what, season like 6, 7, 8 of the Mandalorian by then or something like that. And I don't think this show is going to go for that long. I think, it's going to have 4 or 5 seasons. Yeah.
I hope it's
And
a
then
tighter
something
experience. I
Yeah.
also don't really want to play as Din Djarin. As much as I love him in the show, I would love to see a different part of the Mandalorian, because he's a different segment of the Mandalorian
That's true. It'd
civilization.
be cool to get like a prequel kind of game to see how he,
Yes.
kind of was involved with the other Mandalorians, how he broke away, or started bounty hunting. I just want a bounty hunter game, basically.
Mhm.
But now is the time to release that game. Right now,
Yeah.
within the next 2 years, basically, because that's when it's still hot, and that's before all of this other Star Wars content's launching. Possibly another game we could see, like we talked about, is a Boba Fett game, which is what 1313 became after George Lucas intervened, and
Yep.
that's something everyone would love that. That's someone everyone wants to see. Boba Fett has never had his own proper game. We had Star Wars Bounty Hunter with his dad Django in 2002, and that's
Which
kind
is
of
so
it.
good. I love that
It's
game.
a great game. Yeah, very janky as well.
Very.
Talking about janky games before, trying to control the camera in that game is a challenge in
It's
itself.
a nightmare. You have to
Yeah.
you have to use every single finger on both of your hands to be able to control the camera.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. I played it back in the day in 2002. I think it was one of the first Star Wars games I ever owned, and I never finished the game because it's hard. Like, it's really hard.
so
I was playing it on
difficult.
PS2. Yeah. And I restarted it now, and I'm like, oh, surely, so much time has passed. Like,
I'm
I'm
so much
obviously
better gamer now.
Yeah, like I know what I'm doing now. I'm not, however old like a child in 2002. Do you know what I mean? And it's still just as hard as I remember. Like, it's still giving me issues. So
Yeah.
a lot of fun though.
On the note of a Boba Fett game, what could be super cool and would have a tie-in to Mandalorian without it being a specific Mandalorian, would give it a purpose in the galaxy, would be exploring the time frame of Return of the Jedi. He goes into the Sarlacc pit. He escapes the Sarlacc pit, loses his armor to the Jawas, and then fights his way across the galaxy. You start with a very broken character, so you can have that character development. He doesn't have any abilities or anything, so you'd be able to earn them throughout the game. It'd be pretty great.
It's like the perfect video game setup, isn't it? What happened to Boba Fett falling into Sarlacc? So you're saying you want a game where Boba Fett isn't a Mandalorian, basically, though, because, I mean, that's what it would be, right? He'd be making his way out of the Sarlacc pit, and then, he doesn't have his armor or any other abilities, and, he's got some weaponry. I guess he gets his ship back, but then... What, he meets Fennec, and they go and try and... What, does it bring you up to speed with the events of The Mandalorian? Is that what you're saying? I
would
like the
think
idea.
so.
I really do. I just hope that it'll also give you the opportunity eventually to play as the Boba Fett. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe it's a prequel.
That's true.
A segment
I'm
like
curious.
we had in
Yeah.
Fallen Order, where you'd be able to play as he was training. You could get flashbacks as he's going through the slums. Maybe he's sleeping in the streets, and you get a flashback, and you play through as he is the peak Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And then you flash back, and he's
good.
got to fight his way.
Oh, man.
back to that point.
Yes, please. Yes. So is this a single player game, or it's an open world, right? Open world set on what, Tatooine, you're saying? Is that kind of
I would
the game
love
you're
that.
going for? Yeah.
Get some
okay.
Western aspects, some samurai aspects. You have the broken samurai character as he's trudging his way to regain his honor.
And I feel like Tamura Morrison would be down for doing the voice too, and
Oh, definitely.
acting, because
He signed up for a whole nother show.
yeah, it's so true. Yeah, for me, he is just hearing his voice for the first time in The Mandalorian literally
man.
gave me shivers. I'm just like, every time he spoke in previous scenes, he'd just give one line. I'd be like, oh, there's that voice. It's so good. So yeah, I feel like, he did the whole Bounty Hunter game back in 2002 that we mentioned before. He did the voices for the original Battlefronts for Boba. The fact he's getting his own show, though, do you think by the time a Bounty Hunter Boba Fett game would come out, do you think people would still care as much about Boba Fett? Would it
I
still
think
sell,
so.
or would we...
He's such a strong character, and we've
So
gone
true.
so long between showings of him. I don't think that would die down just because we got one show with him.
Maybe.
I think that would
Yeah.
just fuel. Oh my gosh, I would love to see him to the point. And
in
then
a game.
that's if they don't show that. So this is just leaning on the fact that they don't show flashbacks to how he got out of the Sarlacc pit in the Book of Boba Fett.
That's true. Okay. I mean, yeah, I feel like that show is going to explore that, right? We're definitely going to see his journey of how he got there, surely, right? Because, I mean, what is the Book of Boba Fett? I'm assuming that means it's like, what does the title mean? It's like his story, right? It's what happened to Boba Fett. It's here's him, in the Sarlacc, gets out, takes over the Hutt cartel on Tatooine for some reason.
Epic.
I know. It's like, yeah, what's he doing? What's his motivation for doing it? He's just like, oh yeah, I can do this now, I guess. It's like, he doesn't want revenge, does he? He just cares about money.
Mm-hmm. That was like the ultimate Godfather moment where he's like taking over everything, sitting down,
for sure,
lounging like he owns the place.
I think the character Boba Fett works so well, though, is because he's used so sparingly. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's such a mystery still, and such a kind of, this distant character you kind of always just see in the background. And he's always just there, and he's just watching, and he's just, having some small input in certain places. But
definitely,
I think this is why I'm just.
Oh no, I think it's a definitely fair concern. The last thing I want is for everyone to get tired of Boba Fett, and I think one of the strong suits of the Mandalorian was they introduced him, and then you don't see him until much later on in the series, and he's just in the background. Like, it was so good.
True. I think that's kind of becoming a bit of a problem with Vader now as well. Like after Rogue One, the hallway scene, right? Totally epic, insane, amazing fan service, and very good fan service. And then Jedi Fallen Order also appears in the end of that. It's super scary. Loved it. But if they did a similar thing again, where Vader, appears towards the end of one of these stories and just has another kind of like powerful moment, I think it's played. Do you know what I mean? I'm kind of over that now. I'm like, oh, it's Vader again. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I feel like it needs to take another step up and become something more like, either we see a weaker side to him or something like that, or we see something about Padme perhaps, or something to do with Palpatine, the Emperor, and it needs to evolve. And that's what I'm saying is, like, I don't want to see the same thing happen to Boba.
Oh no, I think it's definitely a fair concern there. But hopefully, I mean, I just want to see more of him, but I hope it doesn't get to the point. And I think that's definitely what we're going to be seeing as Star Wars continues. I know a lot of people's concerns with so many in the broader world of Star Wars games. There could be a case where people get burnt out on Star Wars games, so I think that's why they were holding back a bit. But as long as they're good games and they stand on their own and they don't have to just rest on their laurels that, oh, it's a Star Wars game, so we're going to make money, and it's genuinely a good game, I don't think we'll get burnt out on them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely changed right now, hasn't it? Like, the resurgence of Battlefront 2 again, might I add. Good. Again, it's just as popular as ever, and people are they're desperate for Star Wars games right now, and I'm really hoping that we see some more announcements and just more of everything real soon, because with all the new shows coming, like, I think Star Wars gaming definitely deserves it. It's a new era, man. It's a new era, hopefully as memorable as the old days in the mid-2000s. I can't wait.
Definitely.
Stay bombastic.